Good evening and welcome to the Sound Off program, the first show in 2019. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you had a wonderful Christmas and New Year's celebration, and let's hope for the best for this country going forward. Along those lines, I'm going to ask you to bear with me. Well, by the way, I feel like I'm coming down with a cold. I may end up sneezing on the show or losing my voice, just to forewarn you. Fortunately, I have a guest here. I want to share with you something that I typed up a couple of days ago. It relates to what is going on in our country, and I just couldn't resist, so please bear with me. In the late 1800s, when my grandparents immigrated from Europe to the United States of America, they respected our nation. Because we Americans also respected our nation, there was a legal process to enter this country through Ellis Island in New York. Foreigners were excited to follow U.S. immigration laws in order to become American citizens. They literally kissed the ground when they got off the boat that brought them to America. At Ellis Island, immigrants were checked for transmittable diseases, and they had to stay there for a period of time. Like my grandparents, many immigrants to this nation had a sponsor that provided them with a temporary home and helped them to find employment. They were eager to learn English, to assimilate into our American culture, and to become American citizens. They were so grateful for the opportunities available to them. Today, people from Central America, Mexico, and the Middle East are trying to force their way across our southern border, or finding a way to sneak into the country. They show no respect for the fact that the United States is a sovereign nation and that there is a legal process for entering our country. For too many years, the United States has been lax in enforcing citizenship laws as well as visa laws. Today, there are over 22 million people. I believe that number could be wrong, but that's what I think it is. So correct me if I'm wrong. People who are living illegally in our nation. They are residents, but they are not citizens. Numerous visa card holders have overstayed their work and education visa time limits. It is time to enforce our laws. The United States is a democratic constitutional republic. The U.S. Constitution is the supreme law of our nation. People who want to become a part of this country to benefit from opportunities available to them must do so by entering our nation legally, becoming an American citizen, learning our language, abiding by our laws, assimilating into our American culture, and by becoming financially independent taxpayers so that they are not a burden on hardworking American families. 22 states have already made English their official language. When people share a language, they bond more easily. And imagine the huge amount of money that could be saved if the government didn't print so many documents in about 30 languages. The primary duty of our government and the people who have been elected to represent American citizens is their obligation to ensure that this nation is safe from invasion, criminals, imported drugs, child molesters, etc., to protect American citizens. The bottom line is that a nation without a border wall is not a nation at all. Numerous other countries have a border wall. Actually, 65 nations have either a wall or a fence around their nation. Now is the time to build a wall on America's southern border to protect our families, our communities, our schools, law enforcement, tax dollars, and more. It is important to know who is in our country. There have been too many Americans murdered by illegal criminals. A huge illegal influx of people from different cultures leads to multiculturalism, which will weaken our nation's unique constitutional culture of individual freedom, opportunities, rights, and responsibilities. A strong border wall, plus manpower, drones, and technology will protect our nation and our citizens and will force potential immigrants who want to become U.S. citizens to comply with our legal immigration process. A win for all. That's it. And I feel very strongly about that. We have a sovereign nation, Don. By the way, folks, my guest tonight and often is Don Tessier, my friend. And so now I'm going to ask you what you would like to chat about.
Well, I'd like to keep talking about what you're talking about.
Good, okay.
Because, as you well know, the president tonight at 9 o'clock is going to talk to the American people on why he feels we should do this.
Absolutely.
All right? And over the weekend, last week, and around the Christmas holidays, there was an officer in California who was shot by an illegal guy who'd been deported 3 or 4 times, all right, and shot him. He'd just been married and had a child and stuff. He immigrated from a country, Fiji, and legally he was here, and he was a police officer, and took pride in that.
Yes.
And what you were saying about what they need to do is the fact is, when they do come here to assimilate into what we're doing, I welcome everybody, but when you come here, as I was saying to somebody the other day, we're not giving up Christmas, and we're not giving up Thanksgiving, we're not giving up Halloween.
Those are our traditions as a nation.
Right, that's what we do, okay?
You come here, you appreciate who we are and what we do.
Right, you don't have to participate in them, but we're not getting rid of them just because you don't favor them. So
respect our laws, respect our people, respect our traditions, etc. Absolutely.
And we got people down in Congress right now who don't want a wall. All right, President Obama, when he had a house in Washington, had a wall. The Vatican has a wall, okay?
And 65 nations have either a wall or a fence.
You just drive around, right? There's a fence around Collins Pearly.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I mean,
to stop trespassing.
Right. It works. It works. And I'm tired of hearing what the Democrats are saying, that the American people don't want a wall. But the people I talk to, all right, not that many in Vermont, but people down south that I know, and you get copies of some of their emails that they send me. Yes, we want a wall. And we'll welcome everybody here who wants to come here and help us make the country better.
Yes.
And it was funny when the intro, where you had the pictures of the people, and it reminds me back in Williamsburg, the House of Burgess,
yes,
when everybody came from all different countries, and they were in the legislature, all right, and they built this country, and they all had different feelings. But they didn't call each other names and things like that.
They may have had some arguments, but they were respectful.
Right.
And when they created the Constitution, they did it with the idea that we were going to be respectful people and not call names of one another, especially...
Or tell somebody to go do something to his mother.
Yeah. Well, that's horrendous.
You know? And with her, out in Michigan... if I was Republican Party out there is such a thing in Congress to recall. If you get enough petitions, we can recall. Well, it's where she just got a point, just took the oath, but we can negate that just because of that, because she broke the law in my mind when she started doing that, because you should have honor. I think our founding fathers got along because they agreed to disagree.
Yes.
And they didn't. But of course, back in a lot of days, they had would challenge people and shoot each other, you know.
Duels.
Duels, right. But we didn't do that when they came here to the United States. They decided that we need to build this up and make it a great country. And I want, before we get going, electoral college is under attack again.
Oh, yes, I know. Well, that's the Democrats because, well, as you, I'm sure, know, Don, in the early founding of this nation, there were big debates in the Continental Congress between the big states and the small states.
There's original 13, correct?
Yes.
All right. And
12 of them voted on the Constitution.
Right. And guess who the small guys were? Vermont wasn't part of the original, okay?
No, we were 14th.
Right. Delaware and Maryland. Virginia, okay, was big back then, okay? New York, okay, and all those, all right? So the founding fathers said, you know, and I can't figure out why they feel that the popular vote is the best way to go. We only have 3 electoral votes here.
Right, in Vermont.
California has probably 15 or 20.
Or more.
Or more,
Yep.
okay?
Yep.
Minnesota, okay, all those bigger states.
Yep.
If we go for popularity, don't
Voting.
even bother to vote, because guess what? Our
The
vote
small
won't count.
states would not have a voice.
Because we have 626,000 people, and that includes children.
Yes.
So you can imagine, we're not even 1 million people. We're just a little butt right here.
Yep.
So the people who are pushing that, all right, are crazy. Our founding fathers looked out for the little
smaller
guys.
states.
Okay,
Yep.
and they say we're doing it for the little guys. Guess what? They're doing it for themselves, as far as I'm concerned. Because who lived in New York? Clintons, okay, and all these other guys. All right, and
Bloomberg,
all those people. California. I mean, California, of course, they're probably going to be as low as Vermont pretty soon, because a lot of people are leaving California.
Well, I know. Well, the new
Census.
Kevin Newman, what's his name? The new governor.
Yeah.
He wants like everything to be sanctuary city type, and
education-wise and health-wise, you know, and I'm glad you said that. So what I would do, I'm going to call Donald Trump up and say, I can get rid of all these people for you real easy. It won't cost us any money. Everybody we catch at the border in California, we're taking them out to what their capital is?
San Francisco. No,
their capital is
of California.
Yeah, it's right on the tip of my tongue. Anyways, we'll take them up there and drop them on their doorstep. Said, here you are, you're a sanctuary city. Take care of these 2,000 or 5,000 people.
You can have them. Huh?
Sacramento is the town.
Okay,
is where the capital is. So we're going to start moving all this, and then we'll do the same thing down in Burlington, and say, hey, we catch these guys up here in Canada, because over the weekend there was people up there where a Border Patrol guy saying they have a lot of people coming in from Canada.
From other countries coming
not
through
from
Canada.
Right, through Canada.
To the United
We'll
States.
take them right down.
A lot of them.
Right, take them right down to Church Street and drop them on the step and say, okay, they're yours.
But there's nothing that says they're going to stay there.
Well, no, but they don't have to take care of them, the city. See, and that's what gets me when in our legislature and our congressional people, they want to get rid of ICE. They don't want any enforcement. But I'd like to see something happen to them, and see, then all of a sudden they'd be calling 911 looking for somebody to help them. They're hypocrites, because I bet you most of those people have fences around their house.
Yeah, like Obama. Yeah, well, when you mention they don't want local police to be able to work with ICE.
Right.
Okay, so that's not good for the rest of us, our safety. Looks like they want open borders. They certainly don't want our nation's border down south. They want it to be porous, where people can just waltz into the country.
Well, why don't we just do this? We got from Maine all the way over to Washington. We're paying people, U.S. Customs, Border Protection, and Immigration. Just close the border then. Let everybody just come through if that's the way they want to feel, those dummies down in Washington.
Well, what are they thinking? They want a multicultural country.
Excuse me.
You're excused.
Swallow it wrong.
They do not want. Oh, now you sound like me.
I know. But anyways, no, and all these people who are going to winning these offices, now back in World War II, World War I, and all those people, when they migrated here and went into Congress and stuff back, they accepted our beliefs and made good citizens.
If you want to leave your established nation where you grew up for
Whatever reason.
Yeah, you must be unhappy there. You must not like something about that country. Well, every country has its own rules and regulations. Some are dictatorships where the people, don't have, like King George III in Great Britain, which is why the colonists came here.
Right.
Because he was a tyrant. And the people didn't have the rights and the responsibilities and so forth. So if you want to leave your own country, whatever you do, come here responsibly and respect us.
And we just elected a crap load of people from other countries, and this one lady out from Palestine, all right? And in her office, where Israel is, she's got an arrow that says Palestine, all right? When you come here, you leave your baggage where you were. All right, we're not going to change. And what they're trying to do, and we as Americans, we need to start listening to who we're electing to go represent us, because pretty soon it's going to be almost like what happened in Europe in the 30s. We're going to have dictators because that's all these people know, and because here it's all voting.
Well, you bring up voting. That's another hot topic. I want surety. I want to know for certain that everybody who votes in this state has proven their legal status. And I firmly support a photo ID. I think it should have your name, your address, your voting district, where you're supposed to vote, so that you can hop from one place to the other. And there should be a way of, I don't like the fact that now you can register to vote online.
That's crazy.
Of course it's crazy. Where's the accountability?
And you can't be here for 6 months going to college and living in Massachusetts.
Well, that was Bernie.
Yep.
Bernie did that under his leadership in Burlington. I don't know how he pulled it off, but he did. And my solution, which I wrote to the governor, was that if we're going to allow an out-of-state college student to vote in Vermont, then there has to be a process whereby there's a notification to paperwork that the student would bring to their town clerk in Burlington, let's say, if they're living there, and they have to document that they're going to be voting in Vermont, and that needs to be sent to their hometown clerk so that they cannot vote in two places.
Double dip, yeah.
Now, I'm not saying they would do that, but it's a way to prevent it from happening.
You remember back in 2008, a thing called Acorn?
Mm-hmm.
What was that? That was exactly what you were talking. They'd vote here and go somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And guess who promoted that? That community organizer.
No kidding. And who would that be?
I can't remember his name. He's no longer in politics, but he's in
politics.
I see him on television all the time, shooting his mouth off about stuff.
Yeah, his name is Barack Obama. He's a community organizer. Still,
I know he is.
I believe, yeah.
I'm giving him a little break.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're talking about issues. We're talking about problems because, unfortunately and very sadly, I see our country changing and not for the better.
That's correct.
And one other issue that's a hot topic for me is how much we are spending on average per pupil in the state of Vermont.
Yep.
You know how much we're spending?
I think it's about, what's it, $15,000 a student?
Guess again.
20.
Guess again.
Oh, don't tell me.
It's almost $22,000 on average per pupil in Vermont. That doesn't mean that we're spending that $22,000 for every student. That's the average. We spend $50,000 for some students.
Yeah.
Okay? I think that there needs to be a huge revision of the way that we educate our children. Because our children are the future of this nation. And if we don't ensure that every student who has the capability is challenged to do the very best that they can do, then we're in trouble. And now my understanding is that the focus is no longer on a grade. Like, you know, when we were in school, you had 50 questions on your test. Each one was worth 2 points. And it was all about the information that the teacher had given us.
You had to get over 50 to get a pass.
Well, of course.
I know it.
And
they had A, B, C, D.
yes,
I got a lot of F's.
Not me.
But I thought it meant friendly.
You were probably friendly, but I don't think that's what they were looking for.
Oh.
But we're doing a great disservice to our teachers and to our children and to our society and to the families. I brought a stack of books home, get it straight, Linda, every night, walking home from the train station.
But right now we can't do that because it's too much on the child.
Come on, the less we expect of them, the less they're going to be able to do.
That's what I'm thinking. No, it's too much on them. Now they want to start school later, like so they can sleep in longer. Because getting up at 7 o'clock in the morning and going to school is too much for them. They should be going at 8 or 9 o'clock. And getting out at 2 or 2:30.
Yeah, right.
And that's why some of these students, and I've told this story before, where I was talking to these recruiters, and I said, "How things must be good." She said, "No." So what's the problem? I said, "We got a lot of people coming to join, but they can't pass the entrance exam, and it's based on a 9th grade education to get in the National Guard."
This is for military?
Yeah. And I said, "Really? You got to be kidding me." I mean, it's really not that difficult.
Well, when you have students graduating from high school and they need remedial reading classes in college, and now the latest is that I've read a month or two ago that there's a new group forming to create an advanced mathematics program because our students are getting to college and they can't do college math. So what are we doing?
Yeah, what's all this $22,000 doing?
Do you know what the national average per pupil is? It's around 11,700. We're almost double.
Well, I know we've talked about this before because I did some research in Tennessee where my son lives, and what the students cost down there is way, way down compared to ours.
I was talking with a friend of mine who's now was a teacher, is now a substitute teacher in retirement. She and her husband both. And she told me that their spending in Detroit was about $8,000 per pupil. So who's monitoring all this?
Where's all the money going? From 8,000 or 10,000 to 22.
A huge
that's a big
percent
spread.
is salaries and benefits.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about this before.
Which you would expect.
Where the teachers didn't want to have any copay. They didn't want to have any deductibles.
Yeah, the governor tried to fix that problem.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I don't understand, frankly, why the citizens, because there was a law written years and years ago that we would pay for the health care and retirement for teachers. So Nobody paid for mine. That was my responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I didn't make as much money as they make, believe me,
Yeah, some of them make.
even as a nurse.
Yeah, some of them make good money. As you know, when I did that research, when they had them pressed, and they didn't put it in the town report, but I've gone to the town and told them I want it in the town report of what we're paying each one of those students, because teachers. Because remember I told you there was a driver's ed guy making $80,000 a year with benefits. I mean, we don't need that. We could get a private sector to teach driving for less than that, for what's there, and hold the parents responsible for part of it. So why, as a taxpayer, should I teach your kid how to drive? That's
You shouldn't.
You know who taught me how to drive? My father. When we go on these back roads, I sit on his lap and steer the thing, and then as we get going, as I get bigger, I drive on back roads and stuff.
Yeah.
And they taught me how to drive. Then
My parents taught me.
I then went out and got a learner's permit so I could drive with a person
Yes.
who had a license
Yeah.
and practice. And then you took the test, right?
Yeah.
And nobody paid for that. I mean, why should I have to pay for a driver's education for your children?
Hey.
It's a parent's responsibility.
Yeah. Well, parents' responsibilities seem to be evaporating as far as the government goes. I'm not saying that there aren't a lot of great parents out there.
Oh, yeah.
Because there are. But there have to be expectations of you as a parent. In fact, that brings up another topic, actually a couple of topics. Let me see here. Yeah, about the state registered daycare centers.
Oh, yeah.
We had a whole lot of daycare providers, private ones, and they were driven out of business by all the regulations that the state put on them.
My children went to daycare and come out very well without all those regulations, like you said, because those regulations were you had to have a PhD and all this like this to teach a kid, how to do certain things and fill in the gap while the mother and father are away, and then the mother and father took over that. You don't start these things so that the daycare is the prime thing. It's just a secondary thing. The primary is the parents.
Right. It's a fill-in.
Right.
Until the parents are
come
working.
home.
But I think the daycare should only be for parents who are working.
Right.
Unless they want to pay for it. Oh, we have a caller. Caller, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, something's always on my mind when I call the Linda Kirker show, the Republican show.
That's a good thing. Happy New Year, Dave.
Happy New Year to you, too.
Thank you. What's going
I
on?
always see Don in church. He's sitting pretty close to the front pew because that way he doesn't fall asleep.
He doesn't want to miss a word.
No, the reason I stand so close, I'm hard to hear, and I want to hear it.
The reason I'm calling in is in reference to daycare. There's so many people that are paying for daycare, and daycare's not cheap anymore, especially when these daycares have to have a certain degree and stuff like that, and that's put on by the state of Vermont. Should they be overseen? Yes. I have a family member that has a daycare, and she has about 7 or 8 kids in her house. And basically, she gets $150 to $200 a week per child. And, how can you afford to pay that and work when you're probably only getting 11 or 12 bucks an hour? It doesn't work.
Well, if
That's why grandparents are taking care of their grandchildren, because their daughter or son needs to work in order to provide for them, and to pay for a car and pay for a cheap house.
It's not easy today. Vermont is a very expensive place to live. I'm a firm believer, Dave, that we have to find ways to keep government from interfering in the private lives of people and their land and so forth. There is such a push today for government to control and take over everything. And perhaps daycare would not be so expensive to the parents if the daycare providers were not forced by government to go through all these regulations, and you have to provide this, and you have to provide that, and your house has to be set up in a certain way, which costs a lot of money. So, of course, the daycare provider is going to add that cost on to the family. I'm all for a neighborhood. Let's say you have a neighborhood, and I have 2 children, and you have 2 children, and you have 3 children, and we're all working, so we make an arrangement with our neighbor, who's a wonderful person,
Right.
has a child of her own, and wants to earn some money, and wants to open up her home, and, you can talk about what's going to be taught, what the rules and regulations are going to be for the kids, and, behavior and so forth, nap time, whatever it takes, and let that work on its own.
That's how it started out. And then, of course, I'm right on the same page with you, because I was just going to say that. The smaller ones, they don't need to be regulated. Right? Now, the big ones, when they got 25, 30 kids, yes, I can see why they need to have some regulations.
I don't think they should be having 25 or 30 students.
Well, there are a couple schools there.
Schools?
They're down in
Daycare?
Daycare. All right.
Yeah, there's a daycare down behind the police department that is quite
has
quite a lot of students.
Has quite a few. So I'm all in favor of that. We can monitor that. But the onesie, twosie, threesies in your neighborhood, like you just said, leave them alone. This is where the state screws up. All right, the big guys, yeah, we need to watch out. But when neighbors know neighbors, all right, and you're watching my kid, then you send your kid, yada, yada, yada. So it's like I said, it's pretty soon you won't be able to hire a babysitter to come into your house, because she's going to have all kinds of this, just to sit there and put them to bed and wait for you to come home, right? So, I mean, the
government out of our lives. Right. Dave, I say, get off my property. Get out of my house. Get out of my car. Get out of my kitchen. Don't be telling me what kind of appliances I have to buy. What is this? Is this Germany and, under Hitler, or what?
Well, we can't. We're told the people today need to be told by government what to do, which is totally stupid. I think we're all smart enough to do what we want, to provide for our families, to take and build a house that is not a Taj Mahal based on what you can afford. But, it's like everything is out of control. The permitting process in the state of Vermont. Right now I talked to Tim Smith, and he told me there's a possibility of another factory coming into in our industrial park. Well, if they go in there and they build the building, and all of a sudden we're going to pay an affiliation fee, plus the water bill, plus the sewer bill. But the affiliation fee is going to be based on the cost of that building. So if it's $1 million, they're going to the city will get 20% of that. Will go to them just for having the privilege of hooking on water and sewer in St. Albert's Town. If that building was $1 million, so.
Well, who's forgetting that this new manufacturing plant will be providing a number of jobs that will help the community?
Yeah, I agree. It's we need to have jobs here, decent paying jobs. Let's face it. How can a family live on $15 an hour? And a lot of people in this area of Franklin County are not getting $15 an hour. But a livable wage is about $15.50.
Well, that's
then you're going to say, as a Republican, you're going to say, well, we can't afford to pay $15 an hour.
A lot of businesses can't. They're small. I think that's another place where government has to get out of private enterprise and let the employee and the employer determine what is a fair wage, depending upon if the three of us were working for Mr. X at his business, and I sloughed off and I showed up late and I didn't do half the work you did, but we had the same job, then I would expect that it makes sense that I wouldn't get the same pay as you would, and nor should I. Because
Well, that's when you take care of your employees. If you take care of your employees are going to take care of your company. They're going to work to make sure that the quality of product or whatever they're selling
on the other hand, Dave, if you prove to your employer that you are a valuable asset to his company, he's going to want to keep you and will pay you more. Or you have the option as a good employee to leave and find a place that'll pay you what you're worth, like I did.
Now, some employers do not like to pay, a halfway decent wage, even based on your experience. They want their profit margin to be higher and their cost of running the business lower.
Well, then, this gets back to a really important point, I think, and it comes to education and strong families and teaching our youth work ethic and personal responsibility and earning what you get in life. I will never forget my mom telling me at one point in my life, Linda, if you want something in this life, don't expect anybody to give you anything. You earn it. And I've always lived my life like that.
Right.
Yeah, my father told me one day I wanted to increase my allowance per week. He said, I won't give you an increase in your allowance, but I'll give you a rake, and you go up and do Mrs. Nelson's lawn up on Diamond Street, and that's what I did, and that was the best thing that I did because, I've made a good life working for the city of St. Albans, and I've done a lot of volunteer work throughout Franklin County, and I got a good word tonight that the Mesa Study is under new president, and I'm very upbeat in reference to that turning around because before, under the old president, I don't think it was being run properly. So,
what was it, Dave?
Humane Society.
Oh, the Humane Society.
Yep.
Yeah.
We need that for sure.
Yeah, because there's so many abandoned animals. Right now, I've had a dog in St. Thomas Town. I've had it for 3 weeks. And that's costing about $20 to $25 a day because I can't find a place that'll take it. Humane Society won't take it. Burlington Humane Society won't take it. Memorial County Humane Society. There was an article in the paper the other day that, we're going to have to do something. And under this new Mr. Briggs, I think his last name is, I'm going to meet with him probably this week or next week and sit down because I can't go to the meeting, which is at the Foundry on the 19th from 2 to 4 because I have to, be other places. Mm-hmm. But that Humane Society is badly needed, and we need to go after these people that abuse animals and abandon animals in apartment houses like they did in Richwood. Well, I've taken enough time up. I shot my mouth off.
That's fine. No, we enjoy.
That's what the show is for.
We enjoyed hearing your sound off.
Absolutely. Anytime, Dave.
Right.
Well, we're going to be doing some interviews up there with people that have been involved with the railroad in St. Albans area. Because I've been asked by Paul Liner's wife to take and interview some people that have been long-time people, employees of the railroad, because let's face it, how much left have we got to show that this is a railroad city at one time? So we're trying to get all the knowledge of a lot of these people like Bob Kuhn, Jim Murphy, and Noel Decker, and people that know the history of the railroad and, where it was and where it's going to in the future. So
all the buildings been torn down.
Yeah.
Except for the roundhouse.
Yeah. So,
well, today I read, no, I didn't read it today, but today I understand that mostly rail is used for business.
Cargo.
And
cargo, right.
Cargo, thank you. And not transportation for people. And I don't know how many people, the federal government and the state, all the EPA and everything that want to control our lives, don't want us driving our cars. They want us to use public transportation. I don't know how much carbon a train gives off, but I just want to be left alone.
Linda and Don, I want to know something. There's a PayPal account set up for people that want to donate towards that wall in Mexico. Have you two donated to the Donald Trump wall yet?
Well, I could consider being a big donor like Nancy Pelosi. She volunteered $1.
Right, and this is why we got problems. That they didn't pull crap like this in Williamsburg when they were putting this country together, rubbing somebody's nose into something. But that's what put it because she's not a leader. All right, she's a bad person. All right, who they felt sorry for and reelected her as Speaker of the House
by 2 votes.
Right, I mean she's going down. We're going downhill. To put $1 in there, that's insulting. Especially since in 2016, Obama wanted a wall, and they wanted to do something for it. And no wonder we got to shut down. It's because her leadership is very, very poor, as far as I can see.
I think any senator or congressman that's in office right now should not be getting a paycheck until the government is opened back up again.
Yeah,
I agree with that. Hey, Dave, you might want to chime in on this, and if not, then just say so. There's a proposed rewrite. Say that 48 times of Act 250.
Yeah, I saw that.
Vermont's land use and development law would make all development projects achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions or else pay carbon offsets. The new Act 250 also would restrict development above 2,000 feet elevation limit, forest fragmentation, and control development adjacent to property now in a state conservation program. It also would require towns, cities, and county plans to be compliant with its goals and guidelines. All new development must be net zero for carbon emissions, or else purchase of offsets will be required. Amending the criteria to address climate change, including requiring projects to have net zero greenhouse gas emissions and be designed to withstand and adapt to climate change. And then it goes on and on.
Well, it's taking away your rights again, by
land rights.
When it was originally put in there. Was good at first, but now it's out of control, and some of the people, whether Democrats or Republicans, are putting this thing together.
I want to correct you. I don't know of any Republicans doing that. It's mostly the Democrats, especially in the House down here. And now we've got a lady from New York, Cortez, who wants to put 70% on the highways for climate change. And we talked about this a couple of weeks ago when I was on the show. The United States is not creating the problem for climate change. It's India and China and other countries down the road, not us. And Linda's going to talk about it now. It was 24 cents a gallon they wanted to put on the gasoline. Now it's up to what, 40 cents you're talking, Linda?
Well, I was quoting, excuse me, I'll have to find it.
It's okay.
Well,
we need, and the biggest pusher is that lady down in North Hero, who's pushing for this carbon tax, and the Speaker of the House down in Montpelier, where she's from Waterbury.
Well, it's going to push the rest of the middle income, the retirees out of the state or sell their places and move into senior housing.
Well, most of the people, as you well know, the population of the state of Vermont is going down. We're not even 1 million people. And we're going to talk about something in the Electoral College, but we're not even 1 million people, for God's sakes. And they're taxing everybody. And we don't create a lot of carbon up here. I mean, how can we create a lot of carbon with less than 1 million people?
A lot of hot air, though.
Well, that won't kill anybody.
Well, there's something, if you want to look it up, Dave, under HUD, Housing and Urban Development at the national level. Dr. Ben Carson is the secretary of HUD, and he's sharing information. Actually, this American Policy Center sent this out to me. It's all about controlling, this is called AFFH, Affirmatively Furthering Fair Housing Rule. And it's a socialist radical assault on American citizens and local governments. It's going to take away our property rights, destroy our property values, and the reason being, affirmatively, I don't know what's wrong with my mouth tonight, affirmatively furthering fair housing requires every community that applies for HUD grants to perform massive demographic analyses locally and regionally to determine if there are enough low-income and minority people living in every neighborhood. HUD will search the records of every person in each neighborhood for income levels, race, color, religion, national origin, and much more. If there aren't enough of each category in a given area, HUD determines that there is an imbalance and will force a massive shift to balance the breakdown of residents. This is social engineering at its worst. You'll have no choice of the kind of neighborhood you wish to live in. You will see your property values plummet. Your equity in the home you have worked so hard to create will be lost. And even worse, this project is the total destruction of home rule in America. And if you think it doesn't apply to your community, you are wrong. It won't matter who you elect to city council or county commission, even if you elect people who are opposed to this project and the HUD invasion. They're already poring over the last census reports to map out their strategy for your neighborhood. That's scary.
Yeah, well, tomorrow is the carbon tax. Like I said, if I didn't have other things to do, I'd like to go down there. But we'll be having legislative meetings. Breakfast is coming up there, so we got to make ourselves well known that we do not support the carbon tax.
Well, I think what we need to do is get the person who's doing that on the 9th and do it on a weekend, because I'm like you, Dave. I have something I got to do, or else I'd be there with my bells on my shoes and wearing whatever color's there, because we really need to do what they did in France. It's France, all of a sudden, boom.
Well, we don't want to destroy property.
No, I know. Well, I said we're not going to destroy anything, but guess they got their attention, and guess France is no longer part of that unit anymore.
Oh, yeah.
And other governments, agencies in
the
Europe,
Paris Accord, climate Accord.
Yeah, they bailed out. And of course,
well, I'm going to get off in case somebody else wants to call in.
Okay, thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Dave. Take care.
No, but getting back, I know that, but that woke everybody up and saying, hey, that's socialist. France is not a country like us. They're socialized really bad.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
And
Europe.
And some of the people we're electing are socialists. Look at that girl down in
Bernie.
Right. Well, Bernie, but he's one who got her to run for Congress.
Okay,
all right, and showed her how
so-
to do it. I mean, Bernie's not. Everybody thinks he's doing good stuff for us. He's not. All right. He's doing stuff for Bernie Sanders. All right. He lives in a house on the lake at $600,000.
He has 3 homes, doesn't he?
Right. But he's got a big house down on the lake for $600,000. He's running all over the country, doing all kinds of stuff. And I see where Time Argus told him that he shouldn't run for president. So he'll probably do something, run him out of business, because. But I'm watching the TV, and the Democrats. Bernie's not part of the group, and I don't know why he thinks he's going to even be thought of, because the Democrats are stupid, but not this stupid to put an independent person in there who says he's a Democrat. I mean,
I don't know if he plays their game.
well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, the people down south aren't that stupid, can see what it is. A communist running as a Democrat, there's a lot of Democrats down south who wouldn't vote for Bernie Sanders.
Well, we need to get back to the founding principles of this country. Personal responsibility, individual freedom, limited government. The bigger government gets, the less control you have over your life.
Right. But one other thing I found, Cruz from Tennessee and I think Rooney from Pennsylvania, these are 2 senators they're going to push for term limits, only 2 terms in the Senate. I want to see how far that goes. Now, I'll send money to those guys. I would, because I think we need to have term limits. I mean, Pat Leahy is a great guy, but he's overlived his use. The same thing with Bernie, okay, overlived his use. We need other people in there. Bernie's only running for re-election for Bernie Sanders. He's not doing anything for the Vermonters. I mean, he travels every weekend somewhere. And guess who's paying for this?
We are.
All right, we are, plus his people who give him money because they think that the socialist movement is not going away. And we saw it in this last election where a lot of people in different states, we better start watching out who we elect. Pretty soon, we're going to be doing things that we aren't used to. And if you don't, they're going to be putting your butt in jail.
We're seeing government grow, take over more and more of our lives, and that's why it's so important that we're informed and that we participate as citizens in our government at the local level, run for office, but also pay attention to who you're voting for and why.
And yeah, because I've had people say, well, I don't have time. I said, you better have time. And guess what? You're going to run out of time because pretty soon something's going to happen. You're not going to like it.
It's frightening.
And it's working. It's starting to go right now. And we need to smell the roses and figure it out, because sticking your head in the ground like a turtle isn't going to help.
No, it isn't. And not teaching our young people about why this country is so unique and why they're so lucky to live in a country where they have freedom and rights and opportunities, and where government is not supposed to smother you with regulations galore.
Well, like you said, these people running, Bernie, socialism, they want to be like the Middle East. They want to be like Venezuela, Russia, China.
Who does?
North Korea. I mean, does people want to be like living in those kind of countries?
Well, then they should go there.
Well, no, I'm saying that's what socialism is. If you think that Bernie Sanders is looking out for you, I got room.
You got something you want to sell?
Well, I don't say, but I mean, he's not looking out for us. He's not looking out for us. What the heck what's he put on there other than the fact, give somebody something free?
Yeah, free education. Well, you know what? I don't think that being a human being, I don't think we appreciate things that are given to us as much as if we have to work for them.
True.
It's always nice to have someone give you a gift, and you know, that's a thoughtful thing to do. But when it comes to something like your education, unless you are, and it's not really a gift, it's something earned, if you're a top-notch student.
Scholarship.
Of course, today, scholarship. But how can we tell if someone's a top-notch student when they don't give you the kinds of grades where you can say, hey, I got, you know, to yourself, not bragging, but I'm proud that I got the best grade in the classroom. Right. Now it's all proficiency-based. And I was talking with some young people, and one of the young high school boys said, I don't like this proficiency grade. He said, how is the college that I want to go to going to know whether I'm eligible?
True.
But you know what? The colleges don't seem to be caring about your eligibility anymore as long as they're getting paid. Okay? So there have to be rules and qualifications to get into college.
Right. If you don't have skin in the game, you're not going to be there. You know.
And that's why we have children in college who can't read or do that level of math, because the expectations of them were not high enough.
True.
And where's the motivation to excel when your grades don't reflect that your accomplishment? I think we're taking away the motivation to really be a great student.
True.
Unless you come from a family that expects you, like mine. You know, I'd come home with a 94 and my dad says, well, that's nice, but how come it isn't 100? Okay, Dad. Help me with my algebra.
But that's true, because I know students, and I'm not going to mention, but the National Honor Society, all right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
now they don't want to have that anymore.
No, nor do they want a valedictorian because
Right,
God
because-
forbid somebody should stand out.
Stand out and say,
That's-
this person did a great job.
Those things, those types of things, make people aspire.
I went to
To a
school and I
higher-
wasn't part of that, and it didn't bother me. I congratulated them for being smart.
Yeah, well, and some people will strive to get that accomplishment, you know, and that's good for them, you know, but when there's no incentive to excel, what happens to
Well,
society?
Not everybody, for example, when I went through, I didn't get top grades, but I didn't fail on anything.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I didn't feel I needed to do that. I didn't need to be valedictorian or National Honor Society. I passed everything. I learned something. That's what my goal was, just to be successful, and I had other things I was doing. So
Mm-hmm.
I didn't play a whole lot of sports, but I was in the management field of it, working.
Mm-hmm.
All right, everybody has their own motivation. So
That's true.
and so let them go. And not
Yeah.
everybody's going to be valedictorian.
No, and everybody doesn't have to be, but
No.
don't take it away.
No, leave it there.
It's an achievement.
Right.
Okay, I want to mention quickly, because we're down to the last few minutes, just in case folks didn't see this in the paper. Our delegation in Washington, D.C., signed on to a bill, one in the House, one in the Senate, and Bernie and Leahy and Welch all signed on. Our delegation condemned the planned checkpoints so
yeah.
that our local police and
Border Patrol.
Were able initially, prior to these bills, to stop people that they thought were suspicious within 100 miles of the border. Now they've made it 25 miles.
Right.
What?
See, and they've been, I think we've talked about this before, but on Interstate 91, heading out of Derby Line, just White River Junction, the first rest area, when you cross over, they used to have a checkpoint there. And I've been through that hundreds of times.
So what? If you have
no big deal.
nothing-
And we were catching people coming into the country illegally.
If you have nothing to
Right.
hide,
And first of all, who were they? That is a government thing, all right? Well, why can they tell the state police? They have no restriction over the
I
state
know,
police or local
I
cops.
know, don't-
All right? But they're trying to do something with their base. And I think they're not understanding. Vermonters don't believe the same way they do. And I can't figure out why they keep getting reelected, to be honest with you.
well, that's a question.
You know, I mean, what's Leahy done for us? He built the Echo down there, and it bothers me a whole lot when it says Leahy
I
Electrical
know.
Center. How much money did he put in?
Yeah.
I'd like to know if he put in any money. Just because he got our money in there through Congress, all right? So why do we name buildings after people? Now, the only guy that Pomelo, they got buildings named after him because he put skin in the game. Like
Yeah.
he gave $1 million to the police department, and I think that the auditorium down there for $1 million for restoration stuff. Yeah, it should be named after him. All right.
Well, and these folks in Congress get their money, our money, and they use it to bring it back. You know, they get a certain money allotted to bring it back to Vermont, and then they're a hero, and then they get reelected. But they're using our money to do that. Anyway, we're down to 30 seconds or so, Don.
Okay.
Time goes fast.
It does when you're having a good time.
Thank you for coming back on. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Happy New Year.
Same to you.
I'm sure I'll have you back again in not too distant future. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next Tuesday. Good night.